Swerve for me had the feeling of a feminine touch on 2019's The Joker. This person with a mental illness that's really feeling wrecked by society, by the people that are closest to her. Nobody really wants to listen to her. And at the end, it kind of all comes back to them, even though I guess unlike in the Joker's case, it's not intentional on part of Holly. Somebody that's gets disillusioned from society, that's suffering from mental illness, that's walked over and stepped over by society, that nobody cares about, nobody wants to listen. I mean, you have your son in the film constantly badger you. He just cares about his jersey. He doesn't care about what you're feeling. I think a lot of moms can relate to that. And that's why I think it's, there's a lot of a feminine touch there. It's a reimagining, I suppose. So how do you feel about that comparison?
Well, I love that comparison. I'll take it. Interestingly enough, a couple people have brought up that film as a comparison, which I think is really interesting. The big difference between Joker and Holly is that the Joker is someone who is clearly suffering and is obviously in pain to anyone who might walk by him on the street, whereas Holly's pain is hidden and silent, like pain tends to be. I think we all put on a brave face to go out into the world and, you know, try to put on a smile. But suffering and pain is a big part of the human condition. So that's something we all have in common, whether it's evident to the world or not. And in terms of, you know, the female take on it and being a mother, I think oftentimes as amazing as being a mother is, it can also be very thankless. And I think you're taken for granted, at least sometimes. And that just comes with the territory. But, you know, when you're in a position where you're constantly taking care of other people, sometimes I think it can be easy to lose yourself.
I mean, there's a lot of brutal moments in this movie, obviously at the end with the kids, but for some reason, the most dark, I guess if you can call it, scene in this whole movie is when your sister brings up that you ate the pie that used to be called Holly Hippo, and it's just such a, it seems like nothing, but it's such like a humiliating bullying moment that I think a lot of people that's going to resonate with them. And I was wondering how you felt about that scene, what it meant to you, if you drew on anything from your own life or that reaction, because you had a natural reaction there. So.
Yes, well, Ashley Bell, who plays my sister, is such a fantastic actor, and she does such a superb job in this role. I didn't really have to do much in that scene. I really let her do all the work, and I was just reacting to the daggers she was throwing at me across the table. I love that for you, that was even more chilling than some of the more graphic scenes. You know, there's that saying, sticks and stones will never, wait, what is it? Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. The fact of the matter is, most of us will probably, hopefully, never have sticks or stones thrown at us. But most of us have been incredibly hurt and wounded by words. Words are extremely powerful, as we can see in that scene.
And also one of the moments that I felt was special in this film is there's that drawing and it just says somewhere else. It's a character of you and there's total silence in this moment. It's not like you say anything, but it says it all. It's just because this outsider was able to read you completely. And I'm curious what you think about that aspect of life in general when you can't see yourself the way someone else does, and then when you do see it through their eyes, I think it's that much more damaging. So.
Well, I think sometimes seeing ourselves can be so difficult. Sometimes it's a lot easier to see other people clearly, but when it comes to looking at ourselves and, you know, being introspective, it can be very confusing. And I think so much of our lives are spent trying to explain ourselves to other people, whether it be through our work, our words, our actions. And and trying to make people understand who we are. And once in a while, you meet someone who you don't have to explain yourself to. They just seem to understand you and get you just as you are. And those connections are so powerful. And when she has that relationship in the film with that student, even though it's, deeply inappropriate and abhorrent in obvious ways, the attraction is really more about this person seeing her clearly and thinking she's beautiful and thinking she's amazing. Whereas at home and in her day-to-day life, I think she feels very invisible.
I mean, I've seen some dark movies this year. I saw The Dark and the Wicked, which has some brutal stuff in it. But, the kids dying and you being unable to save them and it doesn't end up being a dream or anything. I'm curious what you first thought when you read that in the script even, because it's pretty brutal.
Well, as disturbed as this may sound, it was really that final act that really made me want to do the film. It scared me. It scared me as an actor, which is not an experience you get to have very often. I immediately recognized it as the opportunity of a lifetime. It's not every day you're given this kind of material to work with. I think we want something to sink our teeth into and something to challenge us. And I had never been given a role that was more challenging than this. So as much as intimidating and daunting as it was also something that I knew I had to do.
You were pretty much an unreliable lead character, an unreliable protagonist, because even when you see that car crash, you can't really tell if she's just dreaming it, if she's sleepwalking, if it really happened. And I'm curious what you thought of that aspect of the film, because even at the end, when what happens with the kids, I wasn't completely certain if that happened or not. But then once that last moment happens in a supermarket with the gun, then
Yes, and there's been lots of questions when I've been doing interviews. Lots of people interpret the film differently. There's a certain element of ambiguity to it, which I like. That it's open for interpretation. But for me, the actor, it was all 100% literal. None of it was in her mind. None of it was a deranged delusion. It was all literal and happening.
How do you feel about the fact that, mothers around the US or whoever's going to see this film are going to relate to Holly's story in a lot of ways? And, going back to that child constantly badgering you or they're cursing when you don't want to and pretty much disobeying you in every way. Nobody appreciates you in any way.
No, they're little shits in that movie. They're terrible. Well, I think it's never been easy being a mom. And I think, now in this pandemic we find ourselves in, it's even more difficult, with kids not going to school and having to be a parent 24/7 a day. That's a full-time job, and trying to juggle that with different areas of your life, it's a lot. And we should give mothers a lot more credit because it is definitely the hardest job out there.